Imagine standing in front of a stone face weighing over 40 tons, carved more than 3,000 years ago without iron tools, cranes, or machines. Now imagine this. The stone didn't come from nearby. It was transported across rivers, wetlands, and dense tropical terrain from volcanic mountains dozens of kilometers away. And these weren't random statues. Every face carries different expressions, features, and distinct characteristics. Who were these men? King, warriors, sacred rulers. And how did an ancient civilization organize the labor needed to move stones, weighing up to 40 tons? I'm T.Y.N.X, your lead investigator. Today, we're traveling deep into ancient Mexico to uncover the truth behind one of the most mysterious engineering achievements of the ancient Americas, the Olmec Colossal heads. To understand the colossal heads, we first have to understand the civilization that created them. Long before the Maya and the Aztec, another culture emerged along the Gulf Coast of present-day Mexico.
Archaeologists identify this civilization as the Olmecs. Their major centers flourished between approximately 1500 and 400 BCE in what are now the Mexican states of Veracruz and Tabasco.
And the environment shaped everything they built.
Archaeological evidence shows the Olmecs reshaped parts of the landscape itself, constructing elevated ceremonial areas above the surrounding wetlands.
This wasn't a desert empire built from stone pyramids. The Olmec world was humid, river-filled, and heavily forested. Survival here required adaptation.
The Olmecs developed complex settlements near fertile floodplains and river systems. These environments supported agriculture, trade, and growing population centers.
And eventually, some of those settlements became something larger: organized ceremonial capitals.
Sites such as San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes reveal evidence of centralized planning, monument construction, long-distance transport systems, and social hierarchy.
That matters because large monuments don't appear by accident. To carve and move stones on this scale, the Olmecs needed leadership, labor coordination, food systems, and skilled artisans.
Many historians consider the Olmecs one of the foundational civilizations of Mesoamerica, because later cultures inherited elements of their symbolism, religion, monumental art, and political organization.
In other words, these colossal heads weren't isolated artworks. They were products of one of the earliest major civilizations in the Americas.
Now comes the real mystery. How did the Olmecs actually create these giants? The colossal heads were carved primarily from basalt, a dense volcanic stone sourced from the Sierra de los Tuxtlas Mountains.
Some of these stones weighed over 20 tons. The largest approached 40 tons, and the quarries were not located beside the cities.
Geological studies suggest that many of the stones originated near Cerro Singtepec, located dozens of kilometers from major Olmec centers.
That raises a serious engineering problem. The Olmecs had no draft animals, no wagons capable of carrying massive stone blocks,
no iron cutting tools. Researchers believe transportation likely involved a combination of sledges, rollers, river rafts, and coordinated human labor.
Think about the scale of organization required. Hundreds, possibly thousands of workers moving enormous basalt monuments through swamps, rivers, and unstable terrain.
The Gulf Coast environment may actually have helped the process. Seasonal waterways and floodplains could have functioned as transport corridors.
Then came the carving itself.
Olmec artisans likely used hammerstones made from harder rock to shape the basalt surfaces. The process would have required extensive planning, precision, and labor specialization.
But here's what makes the heads even more fascinating. These faces are not identical.
Each colossal head displays unique facial features, helmet designs, and proportions. Archaeologists generally interpret them as individualized portraits rather than generic figures.
So these were probably representations of specific rulers. Real people transformed into monumental stone.
Some helmets resemble protective headgear associated with warfare or ceremonial activities, including the Mesoamerican ball game tradition. This wasn't just sculpture. It was political messaging carved into volcanic rock.
When you stand beside one of these heads, the scale changes your perception immediately. You feel small.
Monumental art often functions as a projection of authority. Across ancient civilizations, rulers used scale to communicate permanence, legitimacy, and power.
And the Olmecs understood that psychology thousands of years ago.
The placement of colossal heads within ceremonial centers suggests they were connected to elite identity and political symbolism. But archaeologists also discovered something unexpected. Some colossal heads had been buried, relocated, or intentionally damaged.
That changes the story completely. These weren't monuments left untouched by time. Someone deliberately altered their fate.
Researchers continue debating whether these actions reflected ritual practices, political upheaval, dynastic transition, environmental disruption, or the decline of specific Olmec centers.
And that raises another question. If these rulers once represented power and authority,
why were some of their monuments later broken, moved, or buried? Some colossal heads were also carved from older stone monuments, including large thrones or altars. This suggests the Olmecs occasionally reshaped earlier monuments into new forms.
That could reflect practical resource reuse. But in many ancient societies, reworking monuments could also symbolize political transition or the transfer of authority.
No surviving Olmec inscriptions clearly identify the rulers represented by the heads. Much of the interpretation relies on archaeology, comparative analysis, and monument context.
So even now, the names are gone. But the faces remain.
Despite centuries of environmental damage, the colossal heads continue preserving evidence of leadership, artistic specialization, labor organization, and ceremonial power.
These were never isolated art pieces. They were embedded within systems of belief, identity, authority, and human ambition. No civilization remains at its peak forever. By around 400 BCE, major Olmec centers began to decline.
The exact causes remain uncertain. Researchers have proposed environmental stress, river changes, shifting trade systems, internal political instability, and broader regional transformation.
But unlike civilizations erased in a single dramatic collapse, the Olmec story appears more gradual.
Many cultural traditions continued into later Mesoamerican societies. Olmec influence can be seen in later religious symbolism, monumental construction, artistic traditions, and political systems.
In a way, the civilization faded, but its ideas survived.
The colossal heads remain among the strongest surviving symbols of early Mesoamerican state-level society.
And maybe that's why they still feel so powerful today. These faces survived thousands of years of rain, vegetation, floods, and human change.
In tropical environments, organic materials decay rapidly. Stone monuments often become the only surviving witnesses to ancient civilizations.
So when we look at these heads, we're probably seeing only a fraction of the Olmec world that once existed.
The colossal heads reveal a civilization capable of large-scale planning, engineering coordination, artistic specialization, and political organization centuries before many later empires emerged in the Americas.
For over 3,000 years, these faces have continued staring back at humanity. Silent, weathered, unmoved by time. And the greatest mystery isn't whether the Olmecs were advanced. The evidence already answers that. The real mystery is how much knowledge disappeared with them. I'm T.Y.N.X. If this investigation changed the way you see ancient history, stay with me. Because the ancient world still has stories buried beneath the surface.